Welcome back, everyone, and thank you for joining me today, because what we are about to talk about could have a real impact on millions of seniors, people with disabilities, veterans, and families across the country who are already feeling squeezed by rising costs and shrinking buying power. Right now, there is a major proposal coming out of the Senate that has caught the attention of retirees and disability recipients everywhere, and it centers around one simple but powerful idea: sending seniors an extra $200 per month for 6 months starting in January 2026. For many people living on Social Security, SSDI, SSI, or veterans benefits, that extra money could mean the difference between stability and struggle, between paying essential bills on time and falling further behind. Senate Democrats are pushing forward with this proposal at a time when inflation is still hitting everyday necessities hard, and the cost of living adjustment that was just announced simply is not enough. The senator leading this effort, Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts, has been very clear about why she believes this emergency relief is necessary. She points directly to the reality that seniors are facing every single day, where groceries cost more, healthcare costs continue to rise, utility bills are higher, and basic living expenses are eating up Social Security checks faster than ever before. When the government announced that the average cost of living adjustment for 2026 would amount to roughly $56 per month, many seniors were left shaking their heads because that increase does not even come close to covering the true rise in expenses. Senator Warren has said plainly that a $56 increase does not cover even 2 days' worth of groceries for many families, especially when food prices have surged the way they have. For seniors who are already budgeting every dollar carefully, that small increase feels almost insulting when compared to the reality of what they are paying at the checkout counter, at the pharmacy, and for basic household utilities. This is the core reason behind the proposal to send an extra $200 per month for 6 months, creating what lawmakers are calling emergency inflation relief for seniors and vulnerable populations. The legislation being proposed is known as the Social Security Emergency Inflation Relief Act, and it is backed by several Democratic senators, including Senator Mark Kelly of Arizona, along with Senator Elizabeth Warren and others. The idea is straightforward but significant. Under this proposal, eligible individuals would receive an additional $200 per month on top of their existing benefits for a 6-month period, running from January 2026 through July 2026. That means a total of $1,200 in extra support over half a year for those who qualify, money that could be used for groceries, rent, utilities, medical expenses, or anything else that has become harder to afford. What makes this proposal especially important is the wide range of people it would apply to. According to the details of the bill, the benefit boost would not be limited to just retired workers on Social Security. It would also apply to individuals receiving supplemental security income, Social Security disability insurance, railroad retirement benefits, veterans disability compensation, and veterans pensions. In other words, this proposal recognizes that inflation is hurting not just retirees, but also people with disabilities and veterans who depend on fixed incomes and have very little flexibility when prices rise. This proposal comes directly on the heels of the Social Security Administration's announcement of a 2.8% cost of living adjustment for 2026. While any increase is better than nothing, many lawmakers and advocates argue that this adjustment simply does not reflect the real inflation seniors are experiencing. The average Social Security recipient will see about $56 more per month, but for those on SSDI, the increase is closer to $41, and for those on SSI, it is even lower at around $27. When you compare those increases to the actual rise in grocery prices, rent, utilities, and medical costs, it becomes clear why so many seniors feel like they are falling behind. For people on disability or SSI, the situation is even more challenging. These individuals are often starting from a much lower base benefit to begin with, which means that even a small increase in expenses can cause serious financial stress. A $27 increase for someone on SSI does not go very far when rent alone may increase by hundreds of dollars per year, not to mention rising food and healthcare costs. This is why Senator Warren and other lawmakers argue that emergency relief is needed, not as a long-term fix, but as a short-term measure to help people get through a particularly difficult period. Another major factor that cannot be ignored is Medicare. While Social Security benefits are increasing by a relatively small amount, Medicare Part B premiums are rising by about 10%, and those premiums are automatically deducted from Social Security checks. For many seniors, this means that a large portion of their cost of living adjustment will be eaten up before they ever see it. In some cases, seniors may feel like they are barely getting ahead at all, because the increase in Medicare premiums cancels out much of the increase in their Social Security benefit. This is what many seniors mean when they say they feel boxed in. They have little control over where their money goes, and even when benefits increase, other government-related costs rise at the same time. When your Social Security check goes up by $56, but your Medicare premiums also go up significantly, it can feel like you are running in place instead of moving forward. This reality is a big part of why lawmakers are talking about emergency relief, rather than relying solely on the standard cost of living adjustment. It is also important to understand the broader economic context behind this proposal. Recent data has shown that middle-class, lower middle-class, and low-income Americans are struggling more than ever with inflation. Even the Federal Reserve Chair has acknowledged that inflation has overshot targets and that certain policies, including tariffs, have contributed to higher prices. When the head of the Federal Reserve, whose primary job is to fight inflation, openly acknowledges that inflation is causing widespread hardship, it sends a powerful signal that additional action may be needed. For seniors, this acknowledgement matters because it confirms what they already know from personal experience. When you go to the grocery store and see prices climbing week after week, when your utility bills are higher than they were last year, and when medical costs continue to rise, it is not just a feeling, it is reality. Knowing that policymakers and economic leaders recognize this struggle helps explain why proposals like the $200 monthly relief payment are gaining traction. Now, one of the questions that often comes up when talking about Social Security is whether it matters how much the average benefit is in your state. People often see charts and rankings showing which states receive the highest average Social Security checks and which receive the lowest, and it can be easy to feel discouraged if your state is near the bottom of the list. But the truth is that average benefit amounts do not tell the whole story, and focusing only on those numbers can be misleading. When you look at the states with the lowest average Social Security benefits, Mississippi often comes in at the bottom, with an average benefit of around $1,814 per month. Other states near the bottom include Louisiana, with about $1,818, and several others that fall under $2,000 per month. On the other end of the spectrum, states like Connecticut, New Jersey, and New Hampshire have average benefits that exceed $2,100 per month, with Connecticut leading the list at around $2,196. At first glance, it might seem like seniors in those higher-paying states are doing much better, but that is where cost of living comes into play. States with higher average Social Security benefits often also have much higher living costs, especially when it comes to housing. Rent is one of the biggest expenses for seniors, particularly for those who do not own their homes outright, and in high-cost states, rent can consume a huge portion of a Social Security check. Take Connecticut as an example. While the average Social Security benefit in Connecticut is about $221 higher than the national average, the average rent in the state is roughly $2,119 per month, which is about $376 higher than the national average. This means that even with a higher Social Security check, many seniors in Connecticut may find that nearly their entire benefit goes toward rent alone, leaving little room for groceries, utilities, medical expenses, or other necessities. The same pattern can be seen in other high-cost states like New York and California. New York ranks around 21st in terms of average Social Security benefits, with an average of about $2,018, while California ranks even lower at around $1,935. Despite these relatively modest benefit levels, both states have some of the highest living costs in the country, especially when it comes to housing. This creates a situation where seniors may receive an average or even below average Social Security check while facing above average expenses. On the flip side, states like Mississippi, which have lower average Social Security benefits, also tend to have much lower living costs. In Mississippi, the average Social Security benefit is only about $161 below the national average, but the average rent is roughly $436 below the national average. This means that, Proportionately speaking, a Social Security check in Mississippi may stretch further than it does in a high-cost state, even if the dollar amount is lower. This is why it is so important to look at the full picture rather than focusing solely on average benefit amounts by state. What really matters is how far your Social Security check goes once you factor in rent, utilities, groceries, healthcare, and other essential expenses. A higher check does not automatically mean a better quality of life if costs are also significantly higher. Understanding this context also helps explain why a flat $200 monthly relief payment could be meaningful across the country. Whether you live in a high-cost state or a lower-cost state, an extra $200 per month can help offset rising expenses and provide some breathing room in your budget. For someone in a high-cost state, it might help cover part of their rent increase or medical bills, while for someone in a lower-cost state, it could stretch further and cover multiple essential expenses. This proposal is not a permanent solution to the long-term challenges facing Social Security, but it is designed as a temporary measure to address an urgent problem. Lawmakers backing the bill argue that seniors and vulnerable populations need immediate relief, while broader discussions about Social Security reform, inflation control, and cost of living adjustments continue. At the same time, it is important for seniors to stay informed about all the changes that could affect their benefits, including Medicare. Medicare enrollment seasons bring their own challenges, and many seniors are unaware of how much Medicare costs can change from year to year. With premiums rising and plan structures evolving, it is more important than ever to review your coverage and make sure it still meets your needs. Many seniors assume that once they choose a Medicare plan, they can simply renew it each year without any issues, but that is often not the case. Plans change, costs change, provider networks change, and coverage rules change. In some states, new pre-authorization requirements are being introduced for certain services, devices, or procedures, which can create additional hurdles for seniors who need care. Medigap plans are also changing, with older plans like Plan F being phased out and Plan G becoming more common, often at higher costs. Medicare Advantage plans are seeing changes as well, with some plans leaving certain states entirely and others adjusting premiums, copays, and coverage details. All of this adds another layer of complexity to an already challenging financial landscape for seniors. This is why many experts emphasize the importance of reviewing your Medicare coverage regularly and seeking guidance if you are unsure about your options. Medicare can end up costing more over a lifetime than Social Security ever pays out, which makes it critical to be in the right plan for your specific situation. Even small differences in premiums, copays, or prescription drug coverage can add up to thousands of dollars over time. When you combine rising Medicare costs with modest Social Security increases and ongoing inflation, it becomes clear why so many seniors are feeling financial pressure. This is the environment in which the proposed $200 monthly relief checks are being discussed, and it helps explain why there is significant interest in the idea. As this proposal moves through the Senate, it is important to remember that it is still just that, a proposal. It will need to be debated, potentially amended, and approved before it can become law. However, the fact that lawmakers are openly discussing emergency relief for seniors is a sign that the challenges facing retirees and people with disabilities are being taken seriously at the highest levels of government. For now, the key takeaway is that seniors are not alone in feeling the strain of rising costs, and there are efforts underway to provide additional support. Whether this specific proposal passes or not, the conversation around inflation, Social Security adequacy, and cost of living adjustments is likely to continue, especially as more people enter retirement and rely on fixed incomes. As always, staying informed is one of the best ways to protect yourself and your benefits. Understanding how proposals like this could affect you, how costs vary by state, and how Medicare changes might impact your budget can help you make better decisions and plan more effectively for the future. Thank you for spending your time with me today, and for staying engaged on these important issues that affect your benefits, your retirement, and your financial security. If you found this information helpful, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you in the next video.